This is the country where the leader chooses the color of the population's cars, changes the calendar, controls the press, restricts citizens from leaving the country, and prohibits women from sitting in the front seat of a car. But don't worry, we're not talking about North Korea. We're talking about one of the most secretive and mysterious countries that few know or have heard of, Turkmenistan. In this place, women are submissive and subject to unique restrictions. But why is it so secretive? What restrictions are imposed on women? And why has almost no one heard of this place? In this video, you'll get all the answers about an unknown and mysterious country where women have almost no rights. Turkmenistan is located in Central Asia and stands out with over 50% of its territory covered by an extensive desert. Although small in population, hosting just over 6 million inhabitants, the country is giant in natural resources, especially natural gas, accounting for a whopping 80% of exports. Turkmenistan fascinates with its natural and cultural diversity. Among its natural wonders are the Karakum Desert, the salty lake of Sarıkamış, and the majestic Kopet Dağ Mountains. Speaking of the Karakum Desert, it's where we find the famous Door to Hell, a flaming crater burning since 1971. Nobody knows exactly how it originated. The most accepted theory suggests that while Soviet geologists were drilling the Karakum Desert for oil, they found a natural gas reserve, leading to the collapse of the ground and the formation of 3 large craters. To prevent methane from being released into the atmosphere, they decided to set fire to one of the craters, thinking the burn would last only a few weeks. It turned out to be eternal. Another version says the massive crater formed in the 1960s and started burning about 20 years later. There's controversy over whether the fire was accidental, perhaps caused by lightning, or intentional. Either way, the fire has been burning for years, becoming a spectacle and one of the most visited tourist attractions in the country. The majority of the population follows the Islamic faith, contributing to the characterization of the country as a patriarchal state where women are expected to be completely submissive to their fathers and husbands. It's important to note that Turkmenistan ranks among the 15 worst countries in terms of religious freedom, according to the International Religious Freedom Commission. Despite being a young country with only 32 years of independence, Turkmenistan has a history dating back over 10,000 years, from the times when it was part of empires like the Parthian, Mongol, and Persian, to the era of Russian rule in 1869. The country passed under Russian rule, but joined the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics in 1924. Only on October 27, 1991, with the collapse of the Soviet Union, did Turkmenistan proclaim its independence. Since then, the Turkmen people have faced the peculiarities and cruelties of their leaders, starting with Saparmurat Niyazov in 1985. While still the leader of the Communist Party resisting the Soviet Union, he self-declared as president in 1990. During his authoritarian and repressive rule, he left a legacy marked by a personality cult, similar to the worship we see in North Korea, where citizens have the image of leaders everywhere and even worship and bring flowers to giant bronze statues. Here, it was a bit more radical. One notable manifestation of this personality cult was when he decided to rename the months and days of the week, even putting his own name in January. He also wrote a book titled Ruhnama, translated as The Book of the Soul, which became a spiritual guide to living according to the precepts he established. This book was imposed as mandatory reading in all universities, a requirement for public officials, and even to pass medical exams. Doctors weren't exempt either. Instead of taking the Hippocratic Oath, the rule was to swear allegiance to the president. Not only was he eccentric, but he was also cruel. Just to give you an idea, in 2005, libraries and hospitals in rural areas were closed, forcing people from the interior to travel to Ashgabat for medical attention. Many died on the way because they couldn't reach in time. Additionally, the leader had a peculiar aversion to animals, especially dogs. Street dogs and cats were hunted and killed, and citizens were forbidden from having more than one pet. Freedom of expression was non-existent. Opposition was silenced. Journalists faced persecutions, and any attempt to dissent from the regime resulted in arrests or disappearances. Relatives of opposition members lived under constant threat, creating a climate of widespread fear. Not to mention, the internet was banned in 2006. The cruelty of the regime also affected the elderly. Niyazov cut retirement benefits for a third of the elderly and reduced pensions for others, demanding the return of values received in the previous 2 years. While people died without medical help and starved without being able to buy medicine, the streets of the capital displayed spinning golden statues in honor of the leader, valued in millions of dollars. His face had to be everywhere, from postage stamps to banknotes. Every citizen received a watch with the president's image, and places like schools, airports, and even the meteorite were renamed in his honor. The country became a bizarre place where the leader's will was the only law and freedom was a forgotten luxury. However, as the saying goes, there is nothing so bad that it cannot get worse. After the death of the dictator disguised as president in December 2006, the next to lead the country was Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, who curiously was the Minister of Health and Dentist of the last ruler. Initially, Berdimuhamedov revoked many of Niyazov's decrees and promised to eradicate the cult of the leader's figure. He facilitated travel, reopened libraries in rural areas, and restored the traditional names of the months and days of the week. It seemed like everything was going well, but it didn't take long for him to show his unconventional methods. He dismantled the cult of the previous leader, but only to start his own. Months and days received his name, and bookstores were filled with his works. His photographs spread through hotels, hospitals, bars, and restaurants. We can say he's vain and narcissistic. He loves to share videos showcasing his musical talent, drive powerful cars, participate in physical strength competitions, and even teach public officials to exercise, all to convey a message of a happy, just, and revitalized government. This, of course, becomes meme-worthy for neighboring nations that also get to know him. He also decided to make a gigantic statue coated in gold situated in the heart of the capital, replacing the one of the old leader. Dogs, prohibited during the previous government, are now mandatory. Several statues of these faithful companions have been erected. He loves these animals so much that he even gave a puppy to the supreme leader of Russia. Who doesn't remember the famous 2017 video of Putin's reaction to seeing this figure holding the dog in an unconventional way? Putin, who obviously loves these faithful companions, rushed to receive the animal from the Turkmen president and kissed it in front of the cameras, a scene that sparked various reactions and comments. Besides dogs, another animal that can't be missing is horses. In practically all his appearances, he has to be mounted on a horse adorned with golden reins and saddles. The eccentricities may have varied, but concerning the press and freedom of expression, nothing changed. In fact, it only worsened over time. In 2008, for example, the president banned satellite dishes, which were the only way to access uncontrolled information. This deprived people of channels from Russian, Turkish, or Arab satellites, which were an alternative to state media propaganda. In January 2013, the country adopted a media law that theoretically guaranteed freedom of expression and prohibited censorship. However, in practice, this law seems to be just a facade because the state continues to fully control the media and punish those who go against the official narrative. Reporters Without Borders included President Berdimuhamedov in a list of 39 world leaders and politicians they consider enemies of freedom of information. Freedom in the World, an annual study measuring the degree of democracy and political freedom in all countries, gave the country a rating of 2, lower than North Korea, which scored 13. Freedom of the press in the country is as rare as sugar, eggs, bread, or cash, and unemployment hovers around 60%, although official figures only mention 3%. Newspapers mainly publish official reports on grain harvest, gas production, and the progress of democracy in the country. However, they don't provide information on incidents or issues that concern the population. A clear example of this restriction on freedom of the press is the requirement that all newspapers have a photo of the national leader on the front page. This photo is centrally sent, and all newspapers have the same image. It was also reported that internet access was allowed, but the catch here is that it's only possible to access Turknet, a censored internet. Moreover, few people have access to it due to financial and bureaucratic barriers, and the use of VPNs is entirely prohibited. Even for those who manage to access the internet, many sites are blocked. Opposition sites, human rights organizations, and Western social media like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, WhatsApp, and even Telegram are inaccessible. The government's information manipulation extended even during the last pandemic. Misinformation about the topic was part of the information control strategy. And of course, we can't fail to mention the reform that the president carried out in a part of the capital, which was rebuilt with luxurious architecture using a lot of white marble. However, this new part of the city, despite its splendor, looks like a ghost town since the population doesn't have the financial resources to live in this area. White is probably the president's favorite color because the circulation of black cars has been prohibited on the streets of the entire country since 2014. Another bizarre fact is that in the capital, it's even worse. There, vehicles of all colors except white were confiscated, and owners were fined. Those who recovered their vehicles were forced to sign a document committing to paint them white at most silver. Amid so much eccentricity, if we can call it that, those who suffer doubly are the women. Remember that we talked at the beginning of the video about the religious persecution that women who adopt another religion often face. Besides being labeled as disobedient, they face severe consequences, including domestic violence, violence, house arrest, sexual assault, and even forced marriages. In the same year that black cars were banned, women who were already facing obstacles to obtaining a driver's license were rigorously prevented from driving vehicles in the country. In addition to the driving ban, other restrictions were imposed, such as access to beauty services, including eyelash extensions, nails, Botox injections, plastic surgery, and even getting their nails done. All beauty salons in the country closed after a warning from the police that banned procedures and customer care without authorization, under the threat of fines or detention for infringement. Professors were prohibited from dyeing their hair, and any woman was prohibited from wearing jeans or tight clothing. Public officials were forced to sign a commitment to abandon beauty services and wear traditional embroidered long pants along with traditional dresses. Violating this promise could result in dismissal or more severe consequences. Students of all grades were forced to adhere to a strict dress code, with each university specifying the color and texture of fabrics for dresses. Besides being forced to wear national costumes, tie their hair with braids, and wear the national headdress. In 2022, a new president was elected, who coincidentally is the son of the previous president, and who apparently will follow in his father's footsteps in this new administration. In addition to not being able to drive, women are forbidden from occupying the front seat of taxis and private cars, and male drivers are forbidden from carrying women who are not family members, demanding that passengers provide documents proving they are relatives of the driver. The official justification is that a woman in the front seat is contrary to national traditions, considered shameful and even criminal. Now let's get to the question that everyone wants an answer to. Why does all this happen and nobody finds out? Unfortunately, international organizations have had little impact on the human rights situation in the country. On the other hand, leaders of other nations show more interest in Turkmenistan's natural riches and resources than in human rights violations, unlike, for example, North Korea, which has nothing valuable to offer. This scenario of isolation contributes to what happens in the country, largely remaining invisible to the outside world. You know the figure of the three monkeys: see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. It's for this reason that almost nobody knows about the situation in Turkmenistan. If you liked the video, leave your like and comment, and don't forget to activate the bell to always be notified of new videos.